you talk about in the book how this sort of generational shift in expectations and where that's come from. But in like my granddad's generation, or even my dad's generation, I would assume they wouldn't have had the same set of impossible expectations. I would assume. Is that what you found in your research?
I think everybody wants to feel that really deep connection with their partner. And so I think that the way that society has improved is that we are not just marrying for sort of practicality, but we are also marrying because we genuinely enjoy being with this person and want to go through life with this person. But I think what we're losing a little bit is, do our values align? Like, the practical part matters. So I think the pendulum swung in the other direction, went from almost pretty much all practical to now it's all like, is this person my soulmate and do they move me? And I think you have to have both. I'm really attracted to this person's essence. And what I mean by essence is most people will say, this is, I don't know where the study came from, but I remember reading this study, that most people will say that the person that they chose to spend their lives with is not the most attractive person they ever dated. And I think that a lot of people say, well, I wouldn't want my partner to think that, but you're more attractive to your partner holistically. That's why they chose you. That's why you chose them. That's why you're together. So it's not just about, is this the person who was the most, the hottest person you've ever dated? And so I think we really have to think about holistically, who do we want to be with? And that's what kind of trips us up, because the practical side matters. Do you have similar ideas about the kind of life you want to live? Do you have similar ideas about how, if you want to have kids or if you don't want to have kids, and how many you might want to have, where you want to live, what kinds of things you want to do in your lives, what matters to you, who you are in the world, political beliefs. Often people say, well, that doesn't matter as much. I think when you have very different views, not necessarily about like what political party you're with, but more about how you see the world. If you see the world very, very differently, that can cause a lot of problems in the relationship later on, not because you're fighting about the world, but because those differences will show up in the way you treat each other.
I hear you saying all of that, and I have to say I agree, and I think everyone would really agree because it makes perfect sense. But in reality, I was thinking about, if I turn to some of my friends that are really struggling with dating right now, and I said all of that to them, I don't think any of it would work, because they are so hardwired to be in search of this like perfect person. Mm-hmm. When I speak to some of my friends who are single and they're over 35, they've really like never been in a relationship before. The things that they say as reasons for why they're not giving this person a chance are so unbelievably petty. Like, I have one friend, and she knows who she is. She's a very good friend of mine. She's been a good friend of mine for more than a decade.
Shout out to your friend.
Yeah. But I was on her profile once, and she told me that the reason she wasn't going to give this guy a chance on this dating app was because in the back of the picture, his display picture, he had boxes on top of his cupboard. And she was like, oh God, he puts boxes on top of his cupboard. Like, so that's why she didn't give him a chance.
So here's the thing. What happens is people look at dating profiles and are going through the apps. And I think, men and women tend to do this a little bit differently. Men are like, am I attracted to this person? Swipe, which also doesn't necessarily work out for them. Like, they're not really looking for, who do I want to be with? And women do the opposite. They look at it they'll look at all the pictures, they'll read everything that the person wrote as if, do I want to marry this person potentially or not? As opposed to, do I want to spend 45 minutes having coffee with this person? Mm-hmm. That's really different. And also on a first date, it's the same mentality where a lot of people think, oh, like people will come in to therapy, or even friends will say, I went on this date, I had a good time, it was fun. I don't know. I didn't feel chemistry. I didn't feel like butterflies. I didn't feel that what I feel like I should feel. So I'm not going to go out with him again. And I'll say, well, why don't you just go spend, another hour with this person and get to know this person and see if something develops? No. Right. And so, but it's like, you had a good time. You did think they said, I did think he was attractive, but I didn't feel chemistry. So it's interesting because there's a study in Marry Him where It was a longitudinal study, and it followed people from the time that they met their partner, like that first date, all the way through. They checked in with them every 5 years for, I think, 20 years. And what happened was they found that the people who were very happy together had kind of revisionist history about what it was like on their first date. So people who were really happily married said, oh yeah, I knew immediately, I felt immediate chemistry with this person, I knew this person was the one. But if you go back to what they reported at the time, often they reported at the time, yeah, nice person, not sure. Okay. But they've changed the story. They really truly believe that they felt something different, but we have data saying, no, you didn't. On the other hand, if people did not last, if people are divorced, that kind of thing, they will say, oh, I was never attracted to the person, or I knew there were red flags in the beginning. But that's not what they reported at the time. At the time, they reported, wow, this person's amazing. So it's really interesting that people use the first date as like, I'm supposed to feel this one thing or else forget it, when people who are very, very happy together, totally in love, totally attracted to each other, often didn't feel those sparks on the first 1, 2, 3 dates. Maybe they were even friends for a while. But people don't give each other the chance to get to know the other person or to let the other person get to know you.